up to $2.8 trillion.
Yeah, that's just a massive number.
It really is. Like, that is not the GDP of a small nation, though it certainly sounds like one. That mind-boggling number is actually the estimated annual global loss to the trade in counterfeit goods.
Right. It's huge.
We are talking about 2.3% of all international trade just vanishing into this shadow economy. It's destroying millions of jobs and, compromising everything from the brake pads on your car to the life-saving medicine sitting right in your cabinet.
Yeah, exactly.
So welcome to today's Deep Dive. I'm so glad you're joining us because our mission today is to unpack this fascinating stack of strategic biographies, technological blueprints, and some really striking visual materials. They detail a proposed civilizational infrastructure designed to just stop this bleeding completely. It is called Authenticity Plus, and its overarching system is known as Deep Authenticity.
The scale of the ambition here is honestly what makes these sources so compelling to dig into. Like, when you look at the figures from the OECD and the European Union Intellectual Property Office, they paint a picture of a global economy that is essentially bleeding out.
Yeah, bleeding out is a good way to put it.
Right, and we are exploring a genuinely bold, really comprehensive plan to attach an inviolable digital passport to literally every physical object on Earth. It's an attempt to bridge the gap between the physical and digital worlds.
Yeah.
To end fraud and halt economic sabotage right in its tracks.
But before we get into the billions of microchips and the neural networks, because we will get there, we need to establish the root cause of the crisis. We have to move from the raw financial cost of counterfeiting to the geopolitical vulnerability of it all.
Yeah, the philosophical core of the issue.
Exactly. The sources present a deeply alarming reality, which is that modern civilization has fundamentally lost its grip on what the texts call material truth.
And that phrase, material truth, that is the anchor for everything we are going to discuss today.
Oh.
The sources argue that we've built this incredibly complex, high-speed global network, but we kind of forgot to build a layer of absolute trust into the foundation. Like, a modern world relies on digital speed, but we're still leaning heavily on analog methods of verification.
Which is crazy when you think about it.
It is. We're talking paper bills, lading, traditional barcodes, physical stamps. We've just lost the ability to verify reality at the sheer scale of modern commerce.
Okay, let's unpack this. Think of the modern global supply chain as the ultimate high-speed cup and balls routine.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. So the cups are shipping containers, the balls are critical resources like pharmaceuticals or aerospace components, and the magician is a decentralized, highly funded criminal syndicate.
A very well-funded magician.
Exactly. And globalization has caused these vital goods to circulate so fast and across so many borders that the cups are just moving much faster than the eye can see. In that blur, international criminal networks are constantly swapping the real for the fake.
And because of the sheer velocity and volume of that routine, think of the millions of containers moving through ports like Rotterdam or Shanghai. Every single week, nations are essentially operating blind.
Yeah.
This introduces a concept from the sources that totally redefines how we should view border control. They call it material sovereignty.
Material sovereignty.
Right, because traditional sovereignty is about a state controlling its borders, its laws, its currency, But material sovereignty asserts that if a state does not have absolute mathematical certainty about the physical objects entering its territory, it cannot realistically protect its citizens.
That makes total sense. Put yourself in the shoes of someone buying a life-saving medication for a family member. You go to the pharmacy, you pay for it, you administer it, and you're doing all of this based entirely on blind faith in the packaging.
Just trust in the cardboard box.
Exactly. You have no mathematical guarantee that it isn't some dangerous fake manufactured in an unregulated shadow lab somewhere. If a customs official cannot definitively verify the origin and chemical makeup of a pharmaceutical shipment, that nation has quite literally lost its sovereignty over its own public health.
To build on that, the erosion of material sovereignty isn't just a health risk. It is a massive transfer of wealth and power away from legitimate states and right into the hands of illicit networks.
Yeah, it's funding the bad guys.
Completely. The high-speed network works flawlessly for the counterfeiters, while the states are just stuck there trying to read forged paper certificates.
So a crisis of this magnitude, where the cups are moving way too fast and states are losing control, it requires a rather unconventional mind to engineer a way out. Our sources introduce us to the architect behind Deep Authenticity, a man named Said Smala.
Right, Said Smala.
And he is described in the text not merely as some, tech founder, but as a strategic thinker, an architect of civilizational solutions, and a high-level expert in the geopolitics of vital flows.
Yeah, he approaches the counterfeiting epidemic not as a supply chain bottleneck, which is how most people see it, but as a fundamental breakdown in human trust. His stated mission in the text is quite literal. It's to give back to the world the capacity to see material truth and protect it.
Yeah.
He views this whole system as the catalyst for an economic and moral renaissance.
We actually have a visual source for him in the materials, which is really striking. I want to bring this image to life for you.
It's a great portrait.
It really is. It's a profile view of an older man looking incredibly intently off camera. He has this distinguished, very long, flowing white beard that strongly contrasts with his dark hair. And he is wearing a crisp, white-collared shirt with these distinct, heavy metal buttons.
Very sharp.
Yeah, the whole image just projects this aura of deep contemplation and unwavering focus. He doesn't look like your typical Silicon Valley disruptor pitching a startup. He looks like a statesman mapping out a 50-year plan.
That visual perfectly aligns with the tone of his strategic writings, too. The sources emphasize his anticipation stratégique sur plusieurs décennies, meaning strategic anticipation over several decades.
He's playing the long game.
Exactly. He is planning for a future where digital and physical realities are completely merged, and he wants to ensure that when that happens, truth is the foundational layer.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting, though. I was looking closely at his strategic biography in our stack of sources, and there is this wildly paradoxical detail.
Oh, the AI part.
Yes. The biography itself states right at the top that it was drafted with the assistance of an AI. It literally says, rédigé par IA ChatGPT.
What's fascinating here is the intersection of deep traditional human philosophy and cutting-edge computation. Yeah. Like, you have a visionary advocating for absolute, unforgeable physical truth. He is dedicating his life to anchoring the physical reality of objects to protect everyday citizens and the geopolitical stability of nations. Yet he is entirely comfortable utilizing a generative artificial intelligence, a tool that synthesizes, extrapolates, and occasionally hallucinates information to articulate these massive civilizational frameworks.
It feels like the ultimate paradox, doesn't it? But it also, I think it reveals his pragmatism. He is building a fortress against physical fraud, and he is using the apex of digital synthesis to codify the blueprint.
Yeah, absolutely.
It shows he is not fighting technology or clinging to the past. He is harnessing the ultimate digital tool to solve the ultimate physical problem.
Because he recognizes that the digital layer is inevitable. The challenge isn't to reject the digital world, but to force it to honestly reflect the physical one. And that requires a system that doesn't just look at a product, but mathematically interrogates it.
Which means a philosophy of material truth is just a ghost without the machinery to enforce it. To actually lock down a border, Smala had to engineer a massive infrastructure.
He had to build the tools.
Exactly. So let's look under the hood at the anatomy of Authenticity Plus. The sources break this down into 5 distinct, highly synchronized technological layers. I kind of think of it like a living organism.
Oh, that's a good way to frame it.
Yeah. So layer 1 is the Internet of Things, or IoT. This is the physical link, the senses touching the world. We are talking about NFC chips, RFID tags, and highly secure scratch-off QR codes. It is how the system physically interacts with the world, linking a tangible box of medicine to its digital identity via a protocol they call AP Connect.
So every physical product becomes a smart object capable of proving its own existence. But, sensing the object isn't enough. You have to protect the handshake between the object and the scanner.
Right, which brings us to layer 2.
Exactly. Cryptography. The Guardian. The sources specify the use of military-grade asymmetric encryption, specifically ECC 512-bit, digital signatures called AP Seal, multi-level SHA-3 hashing, and a double public and private key system known as AP Dual Key.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't spend their weekends reading cryptography manuals, let's translate that.
Please do.
Think of traditional barcodes or standard QR codes like a hotel room key. If someone finds your key, they can open your door. If a counterfeiter copies a standard barcode, they can easily slap it on a fake product, and the scanner will read it as genuine.
Right, it's just a static image.
Exactly. But the AP Dual Key system with ECC 512-bit encryption is entirely different. It is more like a retinal scanner paired with a constantly rolling password. Even if a counterfeiter manages to perfectly clone the physical NFC chip, They don't have the underlying mathematical formula to generate the next correct password required for the digital handshake.
The cloned chip becomes completely useless the exact moment it tries to authenticate.
Boom. Useless.
That cryptographic armor turns raw data into incontestable proof. And once that proof is established, it needs to be stored permanently, which leads to layer 3, the blockchain, specifically the AP ledger.
The long-term memory of the organism.
Exactly. This is the immutable, distributed memory of the system. Every transaction, every movement of an object through a port or a warehouse is recorded permanently. And crucially, the sources note, it is designed to be compatible with major existing blockchains like Ethereum and Hyperledger, as well as sovereign national systems.
But a perfect memory is great, but storage without intelligence is just an archive. That is why layer 4 is artificial intelligence, the brain.
Yes.
The texts highlight the use of both convolutional neural networks, or CNNs, and recurrent neural networks, RNNs. The AI acts as the active brain of the operation. It doesn't just passively watch data flow into the ledger. It actively analyzes behavior, detects anomalies, and predicts high-risk zones for fraud.
To put that in a supply chain context, a convolutional neural network might analyze spatial data, perhaps recognizing inconsistencies in the structural packaging or the visual layout of a factory floor based on IoT sensor data. And meanwhile, the recurrent neural network handles sequential data. If a shipment of aerospace components typically takes 4 days to move from Germany to Brazil, but the ledger shows this specific batch took 7 days and routed through 2 unverified shell companies, the RNN immediately flags the timeline anomaly.
So the system learns, adapts, and highlights the fraud before the parts ever reach an assembly line. That is brilliantly adaptive.
It really is.
But the moment you start talking about feeding every piece of global supply chain data into a centralized brain, you hit a massive geopolitical wall. Which brings us to layer 5, the AP cloud.
Right.
And honestly, this is where the system has to solve the biggest friction point in global tech adoption: data sovereignty. I mean, why would the United States or China or the European Union ever agree to hand over the intimate details of their vital flows to a foreign server?
Well, they wouldn't. The architects of deep authenticity understood that a purely centralized cloud would be geopolitically dead on arrival. The AP cloud circumvents this by using a decentralized architecture where data is strictly segmented by jurisdiction.
That's the genius of it.
Yeah, the sources are very explicit about this protocol. National data never leaves a country's territory without official state-level authorization. It is protected by localized systems called AP Shield and AP Proof.
That is the crucial geopolitical compromise. It provides global visibility, meaning a customs agent in France can verify a product from Japan is authentic without Japan having to sacrifice local control over its proprietary supply chain data.
And tying all these 5 layers together is the AP core, the nerve system, which synchronizes the blockchain with the cloud and the IoT with the AI, creating this continuous, unbroken chain of trust.
But wait, I have to jump in here because this is the glaring hole in all of this beautiful cloud architecture.
Okay, let's hear it.
We are talking about tracking vital goods, food, emergency supplies, basic medicines. What happens if a transport truck hits a massive dead zone? If a shipment of antibiotics arrives at a remote border crossing in a developing nation? Or perhaps in a disaster zone where the cellular infrastructure has been completely wiped out, there's no Wi-Fi? No. Does the whole multi-trillion-dollar system just freeze? Do they have to reject the medicine because the scanner can't reach the AP cloud?
That operational friction was clearly a major hurdle in the design phase because a purely cloud-reliant system would fail disastrously in the real world. The sources directly address this with a feature called AP Offline.
AP Offline.
Yes, because the heavy cryptography, those ECC 512-bit keys and AP seals, is embedded physically within the item's tag and checked against localized encrypted protocols on the scanning device itself. Authenticity can be mathematically guaranteed even without an active internet connection to the broader AP cloud.
So the math happens locally between the scanner and the chip itself.
Yes. The scanner verifies the mathematical proof of the physical object in real time, completely offline. Once the scanner reconnects to a network hours or even days later, it updates the global AP ledger. It bridges the critical gap between high-tech infrastructure and low-tech, unpredictable operational environments.
That offline capability is really what takes this from a theoretical white paper to a viable global standard. It proves the system is rugged enough to survive the messy reality of global commerce.
Special.
So let's look at how this massive technological body actually interacts with the current economy. According to our sources, Authenticity Plus is already designed to operate in over 180 countries.
The key to that global footprint is interoperability. Smala's team isn't trying to force every government and corporation to rip out their existing infrastructure.
Which would be impossible.
Right. The system is designed to plug directly into legacy custom systems, banking APIs, and corporate enterprise resource planning software like SAP or Oracle.
But integrating a single protocol across 180 different national standards is notoriously difficult, especially when you factor in privacy laws.
Which is exactly why the texts emphasize their compliance with the strictest global standards, specifically mentioning ISO 27001 for information security management and the GDPR, the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation.
Right.
Proving GDPR compliance is essential because it demonstrates the system can guarantee material truth without becoming some dystopian surveillance tool that violates individual privacy.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? When we get into the weeds of ECC encryption, APIs, and custom integrations, it is so easy to assume this is just a high-level tool for government auditors and shipping magnates.
Right, it sounds very corporate.
Exactly. But the ultimate beneficiary of material truth is you. It is the everyday citizen. It is the absolute certainty that the baby formula you pull off the shelf is safe, that the digital identity of a product is an unbroken mirror of its physical reality.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the societal impact is profound. The sources explicitly align the deep authenticity infrastructure with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh, the SDGs.
Yes. It directly supports Goal 3, Health, by systematically eliminating fake medicines from the supply chain. It supports Goal 8, Economic Growth, by protecting legitimate businesses from unfair, illicit competition. It advances Goal 12, Responsible Consumption, and Goal 16, Strong Institutions.
So by turning the global supply chain into an ecosystem of absolute mathematical transparency, you are fundamentally altering the economics of crime.
You are completely starving international criminal circuits of their primary revenue streams. I mean, if a counterfeit object literally cannot exist within the legal economic framework because it lacks the mathematical proof required by the AP ledger, the financial incentive to produce fakes just plummets.
It just drops off a cliff.
Exactly. You stabilize sensitive markets, you protect public health, and as the text eloquently puts it, you restore a human face to globalization.
It really is a proposed renaissance, an economic and moral stabilization driven entirely by technology. Wow, we have covered incredible ground today. Let's do a rapid recap of our journey through these blueprints.
Sure. We started by looking into the abyss of a $2.8 trillion counterfeiting crisis that is quietly eroding the material sovereignty of nations worldwide.
We then explored the philosophy of Saeed Smala, a visionary using advanced artificial intelligence to codify a plan to restore material truth to our physical world. We unpacked his complex 5-layer Authenticity Plus ecosystem, driven by the synergy of IoT sensors, military-grade cryptography, an immutable blockchain ledger, AI anomaly detection, and a geopolitically segmented cloud infrastructure.
And we examined how this system, engineered to operate offline and across 180 countries, aims to secure the physical reality of the goods we rely on every single day, crippling international crime and aligning with global sustainable development goals in the process.
It is a phenomenal, ambitious blueprint for the future of global trade. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final, lingering question to ponder on your own.
Okay.
It is a concept not explicitly detailed in the sources, but it is the natural, perhaps unintended, next step of deploying this kind of technology at scale.
This raises an important question about the nature of our future society and the paradox of absolute security.
Exactly that. If a system like Deep Authenticity fully succeeds, if literally every product, every piece of clothing, every component, every medicine we buy is perfectly tracked, mathematically authenticated, and permanently recorded on a global interoperable ledger, what happens to the concept of anonymity?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. In a future where material truth is absolute, and the history of every object is visible to the system, how does perfect transparency change our relationship with the objects we own? If the cups finally stop moving in the global magic trick and everything is illuminated by perfect truth, do we inevitably lose a bit of our own privacy in the spotlight?
Yeah, the tension between perfect material truth and the human desire for an untracked life is going to be the defining debate of the next decade, I think.
Something to think about the next time you scan a QR code on a product and wonder where it really came from. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We love unpacking these complex blueprints and sharing these discoveries with you. Until next time, stay curious.